Imagine that the creator of the universe, the creator of all life, the one who has all power, all knowledge, and who is deeply concerned with you and desires for you to join him at his coffee table. At God's coffee table, we'll be sharing insights about God, the Bible, life's challenges, and we want to provide an answer for any questions, concerns, or thoughts that you may have. Prepare your hearts and minds as we take our seats at God's coffee table. Welcome to God's Coffee Table. I'm Pastor Ray, and this is God's Coffee Table. Hey, everybody. We're going to be talking today about a subject that I believe will help anybody and everybody in having a better life. There's some things that we're going to be talking about that's going to touch your very life, touch maybe even your understanding of God and our relationship with God. Is going to touch a lot of relationships, things that you have in your life with family, with marriages, with children, with your employers, with your friends, and a bunch of different aspects of it. And I'm really excited about it because I know that if you can get this understanding, right, and you start applying some of the principles that we're going to share with you, that you will have better than what you have now. You will have greater marriages. You will have greater success at your jobs. You will have honor. You will have all of these things. And your relationships in general will be able to be lifted up to higher levels as well. I'm going to introduce my guest and my friend in a second, but I wanted to tell you last Thursday, I believe it was Thursday, maybe it was Wednesday, I don't remember, to be honest with you. I talked to you guys a little bit about Thanksgiving, and to me, I sounded like a blubbering idiot. I didn't feel comfortable with what I was saying, and I gave it some more thought. And actually, today is a tie-in to that, and I wanted to tell you about. I tried to convey to you that it was Thanksgiving, and that we should be grateful for the things that we have. We should be grateful for the things God has blessed us with, our families, our marriages, our children, our wives, and all these other things. And I was trying to convey a different aspect of it. Instead of just saying thank you, right? Why don't you demonstrate thanking by your giving? If you are in a marriage and you appreciate the husband or the wife, start doing some things, giving them some things that will demonstrate to them how much you really appreciate it and how much you really thank them for being your husband, being your wife, and sharing in this life together. And that was what I was trying to do last week. I didn't feel that I did an adequate job. But again, this is going to tie into what we're going to talk about today, and I wanted to give you the lead in with that. Also, I had just had a conversation with David Reed, and for those of you that have seen this broadcast before, you know that he was the guy with the big gray beard, and he's been dealing with cancer. He's still dealing with cancer. He has another bout. He's currently going through chemo. He's having a good day today, but keep him in prayer. He's a good man. He's a strong man of faith. But even good men and strong people of faith need a little bit of encouragement, and they obviously always can use your prayers. So keep David Reed in your prayer as well. And as we go move forward, before we do that, I want to introduce my guest panelist today. She's somebody that you guys are familiar with. You've heard me mention her before. She has been here since the get-go. But now I've conned her a little bit to actually coming on camera, and I'm going to introduce my friend. I don't know, you go by Minister? No?
It's Tammy.
Tammy Ruiz.
So happy to be here with you guys. Excited. I just always get excited and energized as we talk about God together. We're doing life together. There's no better book than the Bible as our guide to even just do life for ourselves. So really encourage you as you ask questions, comments. We're able to see them as you're typing them in, and we want to have that dialogue. This is God's coffee table, so we want to get a drink, pull up a chair, and let's go dialogue together.
I forgot to put the computer out, so I have no idea. I can't see it, but you'll let me know.
Yeah.
Okay, well, we're going to talk about, again, and it's going to be on this concept of giving to build relationships. But in order to do that, we also have to discuss an aspect of relationships that we have with our families, with marriages, with children, and with employees as employers and as employees. And that is the concept or the aspect of owing or being obligated. Now, those are terms that people do not like. Okay, I was talking to a number of people today about this concept of owing somebody something or whatever, and it's interesting. A lot of the people that I was talking to, they say I owe nobody anything, and it's like that's not necessarily so. And I'm gonna give you an example that I was talking with our assistant plant manager today, and I brought up this conversation or this thought about owing, and I asked her, I said, in your opinion, what do you feel that employees, your people that you are charged over, owe the leadership and also the company? And she shared with me the first thought, and came right out of her mouth real fast, was the first thing an employee owes is to be there, to be present.
Makes sense.
Because we count on you to be here so we can get so many products out and we can do this or whatever. And when you're not there, it puts everything in a tailspin, or it can. You know, especially you get a large number of people that don't show up.
Right.
And it's like, oh, I never gave that any thought. But that first thing that came out of her mouth, again, understanding her position with the company, I could see, okay, I want to run these 4 lines, but I only have enough for 3. So what am I going to do? You know, how am I going to ship people around? How am I going to do this? So that is everyday battle with them.
Right.
So I saw that, and then she said, and then the second thing is, she said, I believe that an employee owes the company to follow the guidelines that have been established through the contract and through our standards of safety, our standards of practices that we use here. So again, that safety is always it's protocol. The quality is always the same. These are practices that they said these are our standards that we have. These are the practices by which we work. So she's saying these are the things, and I said okay. I said those are the things that are owed. I go and we also talked. Her and I talked about. I owe them a fair day's work because they're giving me a fair wage.
Right.
And a lot of people, they like their. I'm gonna use the word. How do I say this? They like their downtime. And sometimes they produce downtime intentionally, or sometimes it's like they'll get a particular job done and they'll sit back and like a dodo and wait for them to give them another specific job instead of just automatically going to the next one.
Right.
So there's games people play on both sides.
Just trying to check a list. I did my job, what I was supposed to do.
Right, and then they'll sit there and it's like, well, I'm gonna have a cup of coffee, or I'm gonna have a donut, or I'm gonna have this, or I'm gonna go walk around the plant, or because I accomplished my task.
Right.
And it's like, yeah, but we're not idiots and we're not stupid. We know what the job entails, and we know that if this job is ended, we can still do this. But that is on the character of the person. It really is. So we talked about fairness. We talked about wages, about doing the work that you're being paid to do. So, but then I brought in the other aspect of it. I said, okay, so this is the baseline of an employee relationship, the relationship that they should have with the company. And she said, yes. I said, what about giving? I said, how can an employee give more than the baseline? And she looked at me like, what are you talking about? I said, as an employee, right, I can give enthusiasm. I can give loyalty. I can give honor, I can give respect. And we had a little conversation about respect. She's under the belief that everyone is due respect. And I agree to a point. Everyone is due respect. But then there's some times where people lose respect, or they have to continue earning that respect for some people and stuff like that.
Right.
I do believe that everybody should be given a measure of respect, automatic. I mean, in this society, if you disagree me, I'm going to disrespect you right off the get-go. It's like, no, that is what animals do.
Right.
You know, we're not animals. We have a mind. We have a heart. We should have compassion. We should have understanding. But, you know, don't get me going on that. So, again, what we want to talk about today is what is owed in relationships and can you give to make a better relationship. So I'm going to throw it to you for a second because I'm got to get something to drink.
Well, as you're talking about work, you know, my thought goes to in Colossians 3:23, whatever you do, work at it with all your heart, as working for the Lord and not for men. So I think that as you're talking about, you know, we can go to work and we can have a base job, like this is our expectations to get the job done. We all know what we need to do when we go to work. But like you said, if we're following or calling ourselves a believer, we're a Christian, then we are called to a higher calling, a higher living. And so we give more. And it's not because they're due it or we owe them that, but it's because of our love for God.
And it's who we are.
It is who we are. You know, God is all about love. If you're going to describe him, you know, he is love. So it says, be devoted to one another in love. Honor one another above yourselves, and found in Romans 12. And I think that's so when we're going to work, when we're at home with our other relationships, it isn't about giving just what's asked. You're going that extra mile and giving the extra coat in Scripture, the extra tunic. You're doing the extra job, and it doesn't mean you're trying to brown nose or you're trying to just be the best. You're doing that hopefully with an attitude of love, because you know who your God is, and it has nothing to do necessarily with your employer.
So again, like I said, we're going to introduce this concept about owing, which is the base minimum. That's what I'm going to call it. And then the giving that you can put on top. It's almost like this is your apple pie, okay? But you want to put your whipped cream, your ice cream on it, your sprinkles on it. That makes it so much better.
Right.
You know, and that's what we're talking about. And we want to be a blessing to others as well, and especially when we have a relationship with them. You know, so with that in mind, I'm thinking that I'm going to go to marriage. Okay, and marriage is how do I say this? It's very important to me. It's because I deal with so many couples and so many people that have issues in marriages and different situations where if you just employ certain little aspects and get a better understanding of what a marriage is and your part in the marriage, it will make that marriage greater. You know, so I'm going to ask you, I'm going to ask Tammy as well. Okay, are there certain obligations or duties or charges that are embedded in a marriage? For example, okay, in a marriage, when you join in marriage, you have the husband and the wife, and they're both saying now, okay, it's no longer just about me. It's no longer just about her. It's about us together. So what you're saying is, I'm going to work in having a unity so the two will become one. Okay, so I'm going to obligate myself to producing some type of unification process within our marriage. And again, people have an issue when they say they owe something or they're obligated to do something. You obligated yourself to that aspect of a marriage when you said I do.
Right.
But people, they don't like it. I don't want to owe anybody anything. And people will say, well, if I love them and I do this and I do good and I work and I provide for them, I cook their meals for them, I do this, that's because I want to do it. I'm not obligated to do it. And there are some truths to that. You're not obligated to do anything except the things that you said you agree to in your marriage.
I like how you brought the word of, you have the husband, the wife, they're coming together for unity. And that unity, what comes to mind is, thinking about some kind of sports team.
Okay.
Right? If you have, 10 different individuals with their own thoughts trying to do their own thing and thinking about themselves, the team doesn't work very well. Right? But your marriage works much better when you are in unity, when you're coming together, when you are helping each other, when you are supporting each other, when you are doing all the things that we're going to talk about that goes above and beyond just showing up, like say a team. You're not just showing up and doing practice. You're actually you're working together on the same goals as you would in a marriage.
Okay. So with this concept of just one aspect now of marriage, there's more, but this one aspect of marriage about unity. Okay. How can we provide from ourselves the base of giving from ourselves to produce this unity that we're talking about? What can we do to give this person of ourselves something that will help unify us? You have any ideas or thoughts?
Oh, there's so much.
There is. I mean,
Really.
it's like
Right.
there's a shotgun now. You could throw out there whatever you want.
Right.
You
You
know.
almost have to be able to describe the word love. You know what I mean? Because what do I give? What do I owe? I owe that person love. So what does love mean? It means I'm helping them when they're sick. I'm helping them when they're not sick. I'm doing things before they ask. Anything to support and come along and to listen to what they're saying. Hear when they're being frustrated. You know what I mean? Talking when there's a disagreement and trying to work that out. Trying to, again, come back to unity when you're not in unity. There really is so much.
Right, and you actually touched on the second point a little bit, and I'm gonna break it down a little bit more detailed.
Okay.
The unity and what you talked about, what I call support. Support them in your love, support them in your strength, support them in all of these things. But in order to build unity, okay, one of the things that you can give your partner is an ear,
Yeah.
to become a better listener. And listening is not always just with the ear gate. Sometimes it takes the eyes to see. This is a situation that I see it caused pain to this person. They never spoke it. They never said it. But because I could see the countenance change, I could see the frustration, right? They're not saying anything, so I don't have to listen to it, right? But I'm being observant to it.
Yeah.
And when I am observant to it now, because I'm obligated to try to make a marriage unit as one, right? My thought pattern should be, okay, this action caused her pain or him pain, or discomfort or frustration or anger or whatever, right? So now they have communicated that to me in a nonverbal manner. It is my obligation to try to not do that again, or to find another way in which we can work together.
Right.
So again, what we're looking at is a different, one of the things that you can give your partner is communication, listening.
Yeah. Again, as you're speaking, what comes to mind is, God even tells us to listen, doesn't he? So as we think about our relationship with our spouse or our loved ones, is supposed to be reflecting of, how our relationship is with God, and Jesus is our model. So when, in the word, God even says, be still. Be still and know. Sometimes we get so busy talking and we want to give our opinion and we want to give God our prayer request. We want to just tell him everything we want him to fix. Sometimes he says, be still and just listen. It's a great example of how we are to be with our loved ones. Just be still. So we're not thinking about what other people are trying to say or what you're going to say after they're done talking. We're not trying to prove our point. Just be still. Just listen.
I can't
Just
do this.
listen.
Just listen. Okay, so again, what we're talking about at this particular moment is a marriage, and what do we owe in a marriage, and which is your base, and what can we do in different aspects of our marriage to make it better? Okay, I want you guys to have the best marriages. Second best. I got the first one. Okay. I want you to have a good relationship, a loving, supporting, nurturing relationship. And these things come when you start understanding, you start doing the things that you said you're going to do when you said, I was going to marry you. You obligate yourself to that. And again, people don't like that. But if you take it for the true value of it, that's exactly what you did. You signed a contract saying, I will love you. I will support you. I will do these things. And again, there's different forms of that. Some people, the husband works. Some people, the wife works. There's all kinds of variations within that. But in order to get to a point where there is unity, you got to communicate.
Going back to that word of obligation, it is such a negative connotation
Right.
in our culture. It's almost like we like free will. We like to make our own choices. And so when somebody says, I'm obligated, now we start, thinking about, I'm not doing it because I want to. Now I'm doing it because I have to.
And it becomes a drudgery.
Right. And so I think it's more than just an obligation, but it's also your heart attitude as well. Because if I'm going, and I have my husband and I'm doing all kinds of loving tasks that I can check off a list, but my heart attitude is bad. It was in Corinthians, 13, it talks about you can do all these things, but if you don't have love, it's worth nothing.
A lot of times when a couple has had some longevity to them and they've been raising kids, when they get to a point where they become empty nesters, they're looking at each other and they don't know each other anymore because they haven't communicated, they haven't shared, they haven't built that unity as one. When my kids were growing up, I told them, I said, point blank, I said, you know what? You guys are going to grow up. You guys are going to get married. You guys are going to do whatever. You guys are going to move out. You're going to have kids or whatever is in your life. And I said, until that point, we are going to support you. We're going to love you. We're going to do everything we can to help you. Now, and that doesn't mean we're going to give you everything either.
Right.
There's sometimes parents go overboard in their giving, and they're not doing the teaching or the loving. I said it, so it is out there. But they get so involved in the kids, and they don't nurture that unity, right? When it's all said and done, they're strangers to each other, and you have to work on it now before those situations develop where is you're looking at your partner for 25 years, 30 years, and it's like, I don't even know who you are.
Right.
So that's why we're telling you this, because we have an obligation, we have a duty to learn one another, to talk to one another, to listen to one another, to develop that skill of unity. And that also means we got to talk about money issues. We got to talk about, if you have kids, how are they going to be raised? Are they going to be raised in a religious setting, in a religious atmosphere? Are they going to be raised with which types of morals are we going to reinforce with them? So this is all communications, so that way the kids don't play you against each other, because they do it. And if you guys are not together on how you're going to raise this child or what you're going to give them, that they know. And they will use that against you. Well, mom said is this. Well, dad said is this.
Got to be on the same team.
You have to be on the same team, and that's when we're talking about unity. And again, you got to talk about discipline. You got to talk about, little Mary is acting up. What are we going to do about it? Little Johnny is having some problems in school. You just can't say, "Well, that's you. You take care of it." No, no, no. You're the two are one together. The two shall meet these challenges together.
Right.
And that's what we want for you, is that you have such a unified front, not only to deal with these situations, but that when it comes time where it's just the two of you, you now those other parts of your aspects of your life are no longer as daily as it was when the kids were home. It never goes away. And I don't care how old the kids are, that you never stop having a duty or a relationship with your children. That just comes with the turf.
Right.
But building a unity today and knowing that, again, the word obligation is so hard, but we have a duty to each other and to God.
Mm-hmm.
We said we're going to do this. So we better start acting on it and moving on it. And the ways you do it, again, is through communications is one of the keys.
As you talk about an obligation to do,
Mhm.
so the other side kind of comes to mind. What if you don't like that word obligation, think about your marriage and what it would be over time if you didn't do these things. Your marriage, it cannot grow. It can't survive if you are not listening, if you're not supporting, if you're not loving, if you're not giving. So whether you like the word obligation or not, these are things that God is calling us to. And he's also demonstrating how to. So we have a really great example of Jesus and how to love, as we are his bride. We have a great example of how to be in a relationship. And obligation or not, whether you like the word or not, if you don't do these things, you can't have a relationship that's really going to grow in love and in God's love.
Earlier today, as I was getting my thoughts together about this, oh, by the way, this message or this topic that we're talking about today did not wasn't given until this morning, like around 3:00. And all week I was like, I'm trying to figure out, okay, Lord, do we go back on the authorized Christian, which we covered for quite a few sessions? But in my spirit, it was no, because we still need to talk about the fivefold ministries, the apostles, the prophets, the evangelists, pastors, and teachers, and their duties, their charge, their authority that's given to us and to the church, and also on the gifts of the Spirit, the gifts of miracles, the gift of faith, the gift of healings, and all of these other things, which is part of our authority that has been given to us, or power that has been given to us. But I really felt that I wanted to step away from that for a moment and continue on this giving aspect, because first of all, we're in the giving season. Mm-hmm. And also it was given to me this morning to talk about this. The word obligation or the word owe or duty has the connotation of a drudgery. It has the connotation of, okay, I got to do this. And that's the wrong attitude.
Right.
Okay. There are times where you just don't want to do something sometimes. But because you love. And again, love, and I think Tammy said this, has a way to dilute the terminology of owing or
Right.
of obligation, because it is no longer a weight or a burden. It is something that just comes out of you because you want a greater unity. You want to be more supportive. You want to have these greater intimate relationships. So in order to do that, you just can't tell them they got to give. They got to do this. In fact, Roxana Kennel texted something earlier today, and I'm hoping I can find it, but my phone is really messing up. It might be on God's coffee table.
I didn't see it.
Okay.
Not on this one.
Okay, let me see if I can find it real quick. And she was talking about, let me see, it's right here. Let me read this to you from Roxana Kennel earlier because we had made a posting of what we were going to talk about today. And she said this. She says, I am a giver. I feel I give 100% in relationships. It's the recipient I have issues with. Not really issues, but more often than not, the recipient is a taker and doesn't feel the need to contribute much to the relationship. After much prayer and sadness, the relationship is broken. However, I feel these are where these are and were a lesson for me and or them for a lesson for me or them in some way, and I always walk away stronger in the word. That's exactly what it is. In some aspects of it, in this relationship of marriage, and in this aspect of unity, okay, yeah, one person can be the giver, and one person the taker. It's very hard to do that because the giver will eventually start feeling used, start feeling unappreciated, start feeling less, like I'm a lesser person in this because I'm giving you this. I'm trying to do this. I'm wanting this, and you are not responding in like manner.
Right.
All you're doing is taking it. I mean, I'm going to say this. When was the last time, and I'm going to talk to the guys right now, you come home from work and your wife has dinner for you and she's prepared it and stuff like that, and you just say, hey, thanks for dinner. I mean, as silly as that little thing is, right? You are acknowledging her efforts.
Right.
You know, and I'm going to say this as well. There should never, ever be a day that you don't tell each other, I love you. And this is in the support aspect of a marriage. And we're actually gravitating toward that now, is how do you support your partners in marriage? And it's a constant reassurance that you love them, that you think they are they're all that in a bag of chips.
Right.
You know, I tell my wife a lot, and she tells me sometimes I do it too much. I tell her, you know, you're beautiful. I call her beautiful. And I say, hey, beautiful, how you doing? And she says, I'm not beautiful. And it's like, to me, you are, you know. Or I'll call her, like, in fact, this just happened yesterday. I called her like the second time or third time from work. And she says, okay, what is it now? I said, I just want to call because I love you. And I just want, you know, to let you know that. And I'm thinking about you and I miss you. You know, and she says, this is your second call. And I said, I get that. She says, at least you're not doing the 6 or 7 calls you used to do all the time. You know, again, it's in me to reinforce that love and to let her hear it and see it by my actions as well. Now, I don't always do right. And she will tell you I miss opportunities, and sometimes I just get it wrong, right? It's not my intention to, and I learn from it, and sometimes I'm a little bit slow in the learning, but I want her always to know that there is never, ever a doubt or a moment that I stop loving her. Even if we're angry, right? I will still tell her I love her. You know, and again, because I'm putting that there, I'm putting that in there. I'm giving of myself, that I'm giving her that which is myself in that love aspect, in the support.
I think Roxanne brings up a really good point that not every relationship is equal.
Right.
Probably most relationships are not equal.
Correct.
That both partners are so giving to each other. And that's a blessing if you do find that. That's great. But it brings me also to, when I think about Jesus, but for the joy set before him, he endured the cross. You know, we didn't deserve that. We weren't giving to him. He died because he loved us. He gave us way more than we gave him. And so it's a good example. I would certainly say, there's many different relationships out there, and it's a good idea always to have that conversation with the Lord and what you should or shouldn't do. But Jesus is a pretty good example of, he was a way better giver than we are, and he did it whether we deserved it or not, right? But for the joy set before him, he gave, he went.
Yeah, I'm listening to you speak, and I heard the word deserve, and I also heard the word, it wasn't fairness, but it was something from the giver. It's not equal.
Right, it's not.
And I agree, most marriage relationships are not equal.
Right.
Right? I believe they can be. I believe that there is effort put into it, and especially like in support. And support comes in so many different ways. It could be, there was a time where I was hurting emotionally because I had just lost a dear one. And I could not verbalize what I needed, right? But Diane just held me, and then same thing with her. There's times where we don't have to say anything, but the intimacy or the emotional security that you can give somebody by just touching them or just holding their hand. One of the coolest things, and Diane points this out to me all the time, is when we see an older couple walking somewhere and they're still holding hands.
Right.
That's a silly little thing, but it's actually more important than what you think. Okay, I'm going to go to science now. All right, so according to science, when there is physical contact of skin upon skin or flesh upon flesh, right, it causes something in your brain to develop, and they call it endorphins. And when the endorphins come, you get happier, you get more of a joyful thing, and you get more secure. So this couple that has been holding hands for 52 years, and still are holding hands and maybe giving each other a little peck every once in a while, right? What they're saying and what they're producing is more love.
Right.
And it's just, it's like, can we get to those points? Because they got it.
Right.
Something happened in their marriage where it may not have started out equal, right? But something developed. And this is what we're telling you. You can develop a greater unity. You can develop a greater support system, not because you're obligated, because you want to.
Yeah.
So what are the things that we can, go ahead.
I would just say, and to take that a step further, certainly I've talked with people who have broken marriages and have been abused in marriages, and it's tough. And again, that's where you talk with the Lord. But going beyond, you do it because you love the Lord. Sometimes you're doing it because you love the Lord and not the other person, because sometimes it's got to start there. But you're doing it because of the love of the Lord, and you're still following through and giving, even when you may not feel like you should or you want to. You do it because of the obligation, your obligation to the Lord, your obligation to the covenant, and ultimately because you love God. And because God is so good, a lot of times he turns that around.
One of the things I wrote, and I don't know if I said this earlier, but I don't know, to achieve what is owed or what is obligated, what must be done, or blank must be done. In order to achieve a support system within your marriage, what must you do? And one of the things, and we just talked about it, is reassuring each other of your love. Reassuring each other that when you are weak, when I was weak, she didn't have to say, I love you, or whatever. But she reassured in the way that she handled me. And that's what I needed at that point, at that time. And she supported me in my weakness. And I do her as well. And I love it where the Bible says, when you are weak, I am strong.
Yeah.
And they're talking about God, but we also have that same attribute within our marriages. When this one is hurting, right, and you can be strong for them and hold them and undergird them and do the things that are necessary. Sometimes you have to intercede, even in your own family, when somebody causes them some pain or something like that, or whatever. Sometimes you got to step up and say, you know what, this isn't right. This
Right.
is my wife. This is my wife. This is my husband. And we are one. I'm saying that because I've experienced a lot of that, and I'm still not good at that. But I want to be better. I want to be more supportive. And it's something that I have to continue to nurture within myself so I can provide it for her in the support system that I want her to have. I want her to feel a lack for nothing
Right.
from me. I work a full-time job. I provide, to the best that I can, a financial base for her. I have some of these things that's going to provide for her beyond me. If something should ever happen, she will be taken care of. Again, this is support. Also, support can come in a lot of different ways as well. Supporting someone is also, there's a listening aspect as well. Support them in their needs. Okay, now, I've used this before, and my wife knows this, and I use this when I'm dealing with married couples. And I'll say, you're sitting down at a table, right? And you're having dinner or whatever, and there's mashed potatoes, right? And you know that your wife likes salt on her mashed potatoes, right? Before she asks for it, the salt shaker should be in your hand, giving it to her. Now you have listened, you have observed, and now you're supporting her need. And it's as silly as giving her salt. Or when you come home from work or whatever, and she says, the light is out in the bathroom. And that's all she says. She's not making you knowledgeable about a light situation that the bulb is burned out. What she's saying is, I need you to help me to put a bulb in that thing. Again, this is part of your support system. A lot of times she'll say, you're not listening to me. And it's like, I'm hearing everything you're saying. She says, but you're not listening to me. And again, there is a book out there. It's called The Love Languages by Gary, who is that?
Chapman.
Gary Chapman. And it talks about how we perceive love and how we communicate with each other. And the men are from Mars and women are from Venus and all of these issues with communications and stuff like that. It's a good book. It's not the end all. The end all is this book.
Right.
It'll tell you what you need to do. And so will the Holy Spirit. But what I'm saying is, by getting an understanding of what they're not saying is also providing that support system for what they really need or what they're trying to say without actually saying it. And you have to work at it. It doesn't come naturally, and I'm going to say this as well. Okay. In this culture, and it's not, I'm going to use a very stereotypical understanding, okay? When I'm dealing with a couple and the wife says, he does not get, or he doesn't do this for me, or he doesn't get this from me, or my understanding it from this. And one of the things that I have learned is that unfortunately in this culture, men have not been taught how to love a wife properly.
Right.
I think that has fallen away because of social norms, mores that are being taught, and all of these freedoms that we have. And instead of trying to build that unity, men have to learn how to love a wife and a woman properly in a marriage. And it's something that we can do. Same thing for the women, right? But I find it very more often that it's the men who cannot give something that they don't know they're even lacking.
I think that even speaks to a cultural thing because our culture in America says self. You know, if you can, you should be able to be independent. You should be able to take care of yourself. Self-help books. You know, it's all about self. So it's almost like that's what your child is doing great when they can do everything by themselves. You know, so from a very early age, we're taught about self, 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 self. So I agree with you. You know, we need to do a better job about within our family and teaching our children and modeling that and how to think about others first and loving others.
My number of my daughters have told me, "Dad, you messed me up." And it's like, what did I do to you? You know, besides everything else that I've done to you. They said, the way you treat mom, right, is what I'm expecting from my husband. And again, I am no great husband by any standards. I'm working at it. I want to be more. I want to love more. I want more in our relationship and all these other aspects as well. I want her to be so, I don't want to say pleased, but so, the word of, I'm just going to go back to the word of God. The word of God says that we will be enraptured with each other. And the word enraptured is like the word is like intertwining, where we are so intertwined with each other that there is no variation, there is no gaps, there is no breaks. It is, we are one in love and in all these other aspects of marriage. And that's what I want in my marriage. And that's how I treat her. And the girls have seen this. And they say, they have told me, they said, you know, I'm looking for somebody that has some of what you have.
Yeah.
You know, and I told them, I said, I didn't get this, I didn't get born this. I had to learn it. I had to seek out, how do you love a woman? How do you love a wife? How do you love in a marriage? And again, I'm still working on this, still learning it, but there's hope for that guy, and there's hope for that wife of yours as well. Once you start to give of yourself more than having yourself whatever that word, self-centered, maybe that would be the better word. When you are become more of a giver of yourself, which is what she wanted in the first place and what you wanted in the first place when you got married.
Right.
You wanted more of her. You wanted more of him, right? But then comes the self-centeredness. You know, well, I don't need to do that. She understands. You know, that's just my way.
Right.
You know, and if she don't like it, well, you know, oh well. No, it's not oh well. You know, and there's things you can do for that as far as the support.
Sam said, you can turn the fan on and walk away.
You could turn the fan on and walk away. That has become a joke in my house because there was a fan that kind of fell over a little bit, and I took it apart. What was it, yesterday? Yeah, and we got a new fan and stuff like that. Long story short, it's been something that has been aggravating her for a while, and I look at it and it's like it's okay, you know. But and I missed it. I should have been on it sooner. I should have been more diligent in what she was saying to me. Is I needed change. And again, this is a communication. So she was saying this, and I wasn't receiving that, you know. And so she was telling my daughter and my son-in-law, and his advice was just let it run full time, 24/7. Eventually, it's going to fall where he has to fix it. That was the answer to that. But fortunately, it didn't have to fall, and I'm in the process of actually putting it up. But the way our house is, I have to modify a new fan in order to make it work. But it's what she wants. That's the one she wants. That's the one she likes. So that's the one we're going to give her, you know, and it takes effort. So again, thank you, Sam. Appreciate it. Put my business out there, but it's all good. It's all good. Cause I love it. I love I love Diane. I love my wife, you know, and, so having said that, are there any other things that you can think of that you can give or that that you can give in order to achieve a greater support system in a marriage,
Anything that I can give,
or do.
do to get more support?
Yeah,
Or to
to
give
establish a
support.
greater support system within the marriage. I don't know if you want to do it from a woman's point of view,
Sure.
marriage point of view, or
One thing that we learn from experience, right? That's kind of, we can hear something a million times, but we just learn better as we walk through some things. And I know that I have learned over time that the more I am giving and doing and loving, my husband comes back with a response. So I don't have to expect that of him first before I go and support him. A lot of times I just start making more of a conscious effort to, whether it's spending more time with him. I know that as you talk about the different love languages, I know that some of his love language is spending time together and touch. So, whether we're sitting closer together, we're holding hands, we're gonna spend time together, away from the house, so we're so focused on each other. Again, knowing him, how do I come alongside him to meet his needs of what he needs? And I know that, and sometimes he needs them more. And same thing with me, he may know me well, but sometimes I need them more. And even though I know that he loves me beyond a shadow of a doubt, we don't question that. But it does help our relationship grow when I know that he's responding to me with what I need before I even ask, or vice versa. The more that I'm attentive to the nonverbal cues, I'm attentive to what's going on. I know his tone of voice. I know when the comments that come back. You just know your spouse. What they're not saying means.
right. One of the things too that's critical, absolutely critical in a marriage, is trust. And again, trust is tied to unity. Trust is also tied into support. If they can trust that you're going to take care of this, maybe like my failure with the fan, right? That's going to be called a fan failure. But if they ever get to a point, and we've had people who have commented similar to this on this broadcast, that when they lose trust, a lot of your base is destroyed or wounded. And one of the things that you can do to help build a unity within your marriage and within the support system is don't betray that trust. And that goes in many, many different avenues, many different levels. I was talking with this one guy at work, and he was telling me about his brother-in-law and his wife, who has such a trust issue that anytime he goes out, she grabs his phone, she checks this, and maybe the mileage of the car or whatever, because she has such trust issues with him, and it's really not him that she doesn't trust. It's the relationship that she has within herself and also within her marriage. She puts it on him. Well, you were doing this, you were doing this, you were doing this. And it's like, I had no thoughts even of that. This is some insecurities that you need to deal with. And it could be also that the husband is not giving her enough emotional support.
Right.
They start thinking, and there's scriptures, and there's some scriptures that are in the Bible that actually say that people of faith have thought their way or have pondered their way of not having faith. They've lost their faith because they gave too much thought to the other things that don't support and build faith. So by this emotional disconnect here, right, it's causing a rift to be born, even though there is no outside influence. It's totally internal. And these are things that as a husband or as a wife, if you see that, right, you can do things to give. The scripture says, "Make no room for the devil." Give no cause for her to feel she can't trust you, or give him no reason to feel he can't trust you. You know, be where you're at when you're going to be there. Have communications and stuff like that. Continue to reinforce who you are with her in your love and in your intimacy, in your just the touching
Right.
and stuff like that. You can build a relationship and a support system where that trust or the lack of trust can be diminished
Right.
by you giving more of yourself and understanding, okay, homegirl here has a problem with trust. Okay, I'm not going to give her a reason not to trust me. Okay, or the guy has issues with trust or whatever. So I'm going to do what I can. And again, going back to Roxana's thing, it's not fair. Okay, who said it's going to be fair?
Right.
Sometimes one partner has to give more for a period of time because there's a weakness in the other one where they have to shore that strength up, where they have to shore that weakness up. You got something?
No, no. I did want to throw out as we're talking, what are some of the things that you guys feel is things that you need to give in a relationship, in a marriage, to support your spouse or to show that you love them, you're obligated? What are some of the thoughts that you have?
We need to hear from you. I was talking with Tammy before we went live, and one of the things that I was stressing with her as we were talking, I said, it's not about who's sitting on this panel. It's about us giving you the tools and the weapons that you can use and the in your marriage, in your life, so that you will have success, you will have victories, you will have a strength and an understanding of the power and authority that is within you, given to us by God in your marriage, in your families, in your workplaces, in everything that you do. That potential is there. Right? And that's what this is about. It's about giving you the understanding so that you can employ these things so you can have greater. There's other aspects of marriage that we don't have time to get to today. One has to deal with sex. Is sex obligated in a marriage? We're going to talk about that. I'm not going to put her on the spot, so you thought I was going to, but I'm not. There's some other aspects of it as well. We're also going to talk about what are some of the base obligations we have within our families? What are some of the base obligations we have within our church? What are some of the base obligations that we have for ourselves? Do we have an obligation for ourselves as well? And I introduced that to Tammy as well. And also, and this one, I'm going to introduce two aspects of it. Okay? Do we have an obligation to God? Don't answer that yet, because a lot of you are going to say, well, you're supposed to do this, you're supposed to do that, and that's religiosity. There is a core spiritual truth in our obligation to God and also in our obligation to covenant, and we're going to talk about that as well, because they're two different things, right? But then the question that I'm going to put out there for you to ponder, okay, and Tammy and I have talked about this, is God obligated to his creation, us? And I'm not going to tell you the answer today. We're going to use that at a later time. But again, you can see how the importance of understanding our duties because we all said when we signed the paper saying, I am binding myself to this person in marriage. So with that comes certain duties, certain obligations, right? But the obligations do not override the giving. The giving is what makes the obligation less. It's what makes the obligation or the duty or the charge, right, stronger, is when you start giving of yourself more.
Right.
right? And Roxanne, you're right. As far as the giver and the taker, there are times where the giver gives more, the taker takes more, and stuff like that. But we're building toward not necessarily even, but a workable relationship with both giving and taking as the need be. That's what it's all about. Marriage is about the two becoming one and being able to be each other's helpmate, not one being the helpmate only. It's we help each other, and we go to God together.
Right.
So did you have anything that you wanted to?
Just wanted to close with, if you get stuck in your marriage, it's like, what else can I do? Or I don't know what to do from here. I just really encourage you to open up the Word. Jesus is a great example. God is a great example of how to love and in different situations. So the Word has a lot to say about relationships and marriages. We are the bride of Christ, and He is certainly the perfect one, and He shows us how to love and how to walk through them, the relationships. So great resources needed.
I could tell you this. When I married my wife, I was not a Christian. Okay, I wasn't. I knew God. I knew of God, but I did not walk with God. I had an understanding of God, but I did not walk with God. And then when He woke me up and I understood that I needed a Savior, and I became a Christian, a follower, becoming more Christ-like, I learned different aspects of love. And I have grown in the understanding and in the cultivation of love more now that I am a Christian than I was when I was outside. Because God started not only giving me the understanding, but there was a changing in my heart and in my mind, where it's like, I want love. I am love. According to Galatians, it says the fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace. I embody love now as well. I don't have to fake it. I don't have to try to manufacture it. I just have to allow it to come out. And so can you in your marriage and in your life and in other relationships. Remember, we're going to talk more about obligations. I don't want to say versus giving, but how do these obligations get fulfilled by your giving? Not just keeping the same baseline, but actually surpassing that baseline by your giving. And we're going to talk about, is God obligated as well? We're going to talk about that soon. I'm not going to say next week because I think we're still on marriage and we still got some other ones. I'm leaving the thing with God for later on. We're dealing with the human relationships. We're dealing with life issues. We're dealing with life situations that you can have greater if you follow certain little aspects of the giving and understanding and working on these base core needs within the family, within the marriage. So have a great and blessed day, and we look forward to seeing you next week. Continue to let people know about us. Share it on your Facebook, YouTube, and podcast, and have a great and blessed day. Bye-bye.